Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andrade here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel. Click that notifications button and get a new notification whenever a new video is uploaded. Hit that like button too. It does help this channel grow. So, saw the really entertaining fight between Demetrius Andrade and Liam Williams. Now, there were certain things that we got pretty much spot on. You know, we saw that Liam Williams, as we saw in the second fight against Smith, he struggled a little bit with upper body movement. And with Andrade, who is a master of upper body movement, you saw that early on in particular, he was struggling to gauge him and he was getting caught with big shots. And one of the secrets of Andrade is to put himself into awkward positions. And he'll hold his arms quite low, he'll hide that body and keep his head away from you too. So he gets you reaching to commit to land a shot. And from there, from getting yourself into a position where you're almost desperate and falling short, he will generate the momentum that he uses to already lean away and swing by with wide, hard shots. Great balance, a great trajectory, a very unpredictable and unorthodox trajectory of his punches, which lands flush consistently. It's a very high energy consuming style though. And clearly what they were going for was what the Ingle side, the Williams side were going for, was to try and wear down Andrade, get him to work every second of every round in a bid to get him to gas, basically. So when we spoke about the fact that he was a boxer puncher, he didn't show any of that. What he showed in the first fight against Smith, he didn't show in this fight. It was the cruder version of Liam Williams. And a shout out to Boxing Fam Thinks, because he called me out on this basically pre-fight. He said the last couple of times that I've seen him, he looks crude. And indeed, he looked crude again. I promise you, go watch that first Liam Smith fight and you'll see that he can move. What probably happened here was that they thought, look, yes, he can box, but he's not as good as a boxer as Andrade. So let's go to war. Let's try and wear him down, set a tempo that he doesn't like. And there were some moments for Williams, for sure. I thought he won rounds 3, 4, and 10. Round 11 was a close round 2, a swing round. But obviously there was a 10-8 round for Andrade, and the rest of it, he's very, very smart, very clever, able to pick his way through fights when he's not wanting to engage, and when he does want to engage and go to war, he throws these shots, like I said, with a great unpredictability about them, and he sets them up with that level of movement, that upper body movement. But it's not just the upper body movement, he's fast with his feet too. So he's a very slippery cat. It's like fighting an eel, you know, and he's 1 minute he's there, the next minute you think you've got your hands on him, he's not quite there, and he punishes you for it too. However, I do believe we saw some of listen, he's terrific. Don't get me wrong. He's absolutely terrific. He has a chance against anybody in the middleweight and probably super middleweight division too. He's got a chance. He's a brilliant, brilliant fighter. For many, many years, I've said that he's a brilliant, brilliant fighter. But you did see him struggle a little bit with the tempo. And so if you're talking about going forward, guys like Gennady Golovkin are guys he's going to need to avoid, even at this age. Because one of the things you saw with Williams today, he wasn't ever able to load up on shots, but he was still able to find a home for those shots. And like I said in the preview, he's quite good at finding a home for a straight shot without needing a big load. And you saw him land numerous straight right hands to Andrade's head. And at one point he rocked him as well. I think it was in the 10th. He hurt him and Andrade was holding on for dear life. But what you saw after that, and even prior to that, he was so desperate trying to get to Andrade because he was so slippery so constantly that when he finally had that success, he became impatient. And he was launching himself into that attempt to throw a one big hard shot, and he'd end up falling into Andrade and smothering his work. Andrade really should have been warned for excessive holding, But a lot of the times he was able to get away with it because we didn't see any aspect of the boxer puncher where he could feint his way in, take a half step back, take an L step just to create that space to then go to work. Instead, he was falling in looking for that one big shot because Andrade's got this way of making you desperate. You feel you're frustrated. You heard Williams talking to the corner, explaining, I'm not able to land all the shots I want to land. And so because of that, you start to get desperate. You start to overcommit. Andrade's got this brilliant method of moving backwards at a low, changing his height dynamic consistently. Then when you get close, he'll suddenly step in. So you're chasing something that's faster than you. You finally get close. That thing that you're chasing steps in closer to you, closes the range when you're not expecting it, and ties you up. And he can do this in a variety of patterns. So a lot of people sit there and say, oh, he's fiddling his way through a fight. That's a skill set to be able to do that. But you saw that Williams had lost his head really. There wasn't any of the boxing ability that he's capable of. He was in sheer, crude, hunting mentality. And the problem with that mentality is that if you're walking through shots to get your shots off, yes, you've got to be a very tough man, and he clearly is. But you have to then wear the guy down sufficiently enough, where you're really making him pay in the second half of the fight. And we didn't really see that. For all the huff and puff, he won 1 or 2 rounds in the second half of the fight. And although every round, apart from the opening 2, were hard rounds for Andrade, he had to work hard for them. Despite that, he was quite clearly winning a lot of the rounds. I personally had the fight 117, 112. So I thought it was comfortable. In terms of another issue that Williams had is that he was often following Andrade around the ring rather than cutting him off. He was getting a lot of criticism for this, but one of the reasons for this is that he was trying to come in off of the the right shoulder of Andrade, because he didn't want to come across him because of that backhand that was waiting for him. And what you saw is that every time he'd come across to try and line Andrade up, he'd get caught with that straight backhand or with that lead uppercut. So what he was trying to do was stay just outside the shoulder, okay? And that meant that he was following him around. So he tried, it was actually an attempt at an adjustment. And he did have some success. But the problem with that is that 2 things. Number 1, it took away his own left hook, which is a big shot of his. And number 2, all he really then had was a straight jab and a straight right hand punching downwards. When they were up close, Andrade was an expert at taking away angles to target the body too. He was hiding the body so well. And because, as we spoke about in the preview, Leon Williams has quite a high guard and he throws his shots from there, which can be fantastic because there isn't a load on it and there isn't a tail on it when you're just shooting straight without a load. Because his guard's quite open, there is a home for that uppercut. And even when he tried to bring his hands together, the accuracy of Andrade to find those tiny gaps was so impressive. Listen, Demetrius Andrade continues to be undefeated. He continues to lack that defining fight. He made a fantastic point post-fight. He keeps saying, and he's right, I shouldn't need to prove myself or sell myself or motivate, essentially is what he actually said. I shouldn't need to motivate anyone else to come and get me. I'm undefeated and I have a belt. And he's right. All these guys, all of them, Canelo, Charlo, whoever, they can't just not, they can't pretend this guy doesn't exist. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that Canelo's ducking Andrade or anybody else. I believe Canelo wins the fight, okay? I think Andrade gives him a whole host of problems, and it's not impossible that he wins the fight, but I think Canelo wins that fight. But he's so hard to look good against, and he's so slippery and difficult that he's a risk for anyone. And a lot of guys are seeing him as though he's in the who needs him club. I mean, take Charlo, for instance. Wonderful jab, great timing, fantastic uppercut too. Maybe Andrade walks onto something. He sets a good tempo to Charlo. Who knows what happens there? Great jab. But Andrade's an expert at taking away that jab. And we know that Charlo is a little bit upright. So he can come in and underslip and slide and start to land these big leading shots. Personally, I take Andrade in that fight. I believe he beats Charlo. So the point is, he's a threat to anybody at middleweight or super middleweight, in my opinion. Certainly at middleweight. He's getting a bit big now for the weight. It's difficult to know how he'll carry a shot at super middleweight. So there are still some unknowns there against the very elite guys. If guys like Benavidez are landing on him flush, we don't really know how he takes it. But the fact of the matter is, he's a threat for anyone. some elite level skills there. And yeah, we've got to start seeing him get in the ring with the big boys. They need to start fighting this guy, and this guy needs to start putting more pressure on, and the fans need to start getting behind his cause, essentially. As for Liam Williams, he showed a ruggedness, a toughness. He shows that he belongs at a world stage. You know, he gave Andrade some real problems. And he did so through fighting quite a one-dimensional, I'm only going to hunt type fight. We've now seen him in against Smith, who's also a world level fighter, and he looked brilliant in the first fight. In the second fight, he looked really good in spots. I felt he's better than Smith, really, to be honest with you. So the point is, he's shown he belongs at world level. It's going to be difficult for him, though, to start coming again and forcing himself into mandatory positions. So he's got to start running his mouth. He's got to start talking more about Chris Eubank Jr. again. You know, start mugging off the latest opponent of Eubank. Try and get Eubank in the gym, in the ring. These are the things that he's got to do. But they're both very good fighters in their own right. They're both fighters that we're going to want to see in the ring more and more. Hopefully they get the shots they deserved. Let me know what you think of this fight, how you scored it, what the deciding factors were. Have you seen Williams in the past and seen him box off the back foot and know exactly what I'm talking about? Or do you think actually, I think he is just very crude, and when he stepped up at the highest level against an elite level fighter, you saw that he ran out of ideas? Or do you think that he is actually a boxer puncher, but he knew he couldn't compete against a guy of this level when it came to just sheer boxing skill, and as a result had no choice but to make it a war of attrition? Furthermore, where do you see Andrade going from here? Who do you think he should challenge, and who do you think he should avoid? Where do you think his ceiling is? Let me know. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.